So everyone, I would like to welcome you to tonight's IBPSA and the Vet Candy webinar presentation with Dr. Jennifer Chatfield. I met Dr. Jen a few years back at the VMX conference, and she has been what I would call a person who really understands what's happening in the industry, as well as understanding how viruses move from an animal to a human. And so a couple weeks ago, I got to watch Dr. Jen on the Vet Candy do some webinars with the veterinary field, and I thought this is the perfect time for her to talk to us about the cat and the two dogs and the tiger and what that means for us in our industry. Dr. Jen, thanks for being with us tonight.
Oh, thank you so much, Carmen. I'm always excited to talk with you and with your members of IBPSA. I love talking to what I would call the entire animal care team because everyone's got their part to fulfill. And if we don't make sure that everyone's on the same page, well, then we're not doing as good as we can to take care of these pets that we love. And so I want everyone to meet Charlene. So this is Charlene. She is my dog. She is a red border collie. She is apparently a very food-driven border collie, as you'll see. But I always like to bring her on if I'm going to talk about disease transmission, especially with dogs and cats, because look how close I am to her. I am not scared. Oh, she's moving away from me. Maybe she's a little scared. I'm not afraid to be close to my dog, and even in the face of COVID-19, you shouldn't be afraid to be close with your dog. But that's a little different when you're taking care of someone else's dog. And so what we want to talk about today is dogs, cats, tigers, and COVID-19. Okay, and I put a date on this, and I want to point that out to everyone because things are changing with this virus. And so I want you to make sure and note the date if you're watching this as a recorded video. I do want to give a big shout, huge thanks to the two entities who put this together, IBPSA, of course, thank you to Carmen and her folks, and Vet Candy. And I am a member of the Vet Candy Veterinary Advisory Board, as well as the Chief Strategy Officer for Vet Candy. And you can subscribe to Vet Candy, or you can check out our website, our podcast, any of our videos, our new show, Vet Candy Pop. Myself and Dr. Courtney Campbell, who some of you may know, and then my twin brother, Dr. Jason Chatfield, who's also a veterinarian. We are all part of Vet Candy, and you can find us at myvetcandy.com. So let's get into it, shall we? And Charlene says, yes, I want another treat. A treat for each slide, huh? Yeah. So I am going to go quickly over the COVID-19, the disease that produced by this novel coronavirus. And then I'm going to talk about the reported cases to date that we have, which are dogs, cats, and of course, I'm not leaving out that very sexy tiger. And then most importantly, what are the implications for pet care professionals, whether veterinarians or boarding kennels or doggy daycares or groomers, anyone who is working professionally with companion animals. There are some implications there that we should talk about. And don't fret. At the end of this, because I'm going to move through my prepared slides, but the thing I'm most excited about for these live events are your questions and comments. And so I want you to be prepared to type those into the comments section of the Facebook page. And then when we get to the end, I'll address those, okay? All right, so let's talk about this disease. So COVID-19 is the disease that is produced by the virus that is named SARS-CoV-2. So this is really like SARS 2.0. If you remember in the early 2000s, we had the initial SARS virus. It was also a respiratory virus, but it didn't seem to have the same oomph, the same impact with the disease it produced as this SARS-CoV-2. And so the disease itself that it produces is called COVID-19. It did originate in Wuhan, China. And I think Charlene might leave us here in a minute, and that'll be okay. It did originate in Wuhan, China. And it was originally associated with a live animal market, also called a wet market. And in China, what they have at those markets are, they have birds, they have dogs, cats, bats. Oh, and there she goes. There she goes. She's already over Corona. I myself am a bit over Corona. But it's important that we talk about it because there's so much misinformation that's out there in the media about this virus. And so this is one of those pieces, I'm just getting into it, that it was originally, the emergence of the virus was associated with a wet market in China, where they have all the live animals. They have live, they have dead, they slaughter them right there, all kinds of stuff. It's a very busy place. However, patient 0 was confirmed to be identified prior to this wet market happening. And so while the wet market may have provided opportunity for people to transmit the virus to each other, it did not necessarily arise because of the confluence of species happening at that market. So just be a little bit aware of that. I think that's always important for those of us who work with animals to make sure that anytime that a lot of different species come together, that we make sure if there's a disease risk or not. In this case, patient 0 was identified before. So moving forward, transmission occurs through droplets. We know that. So it is not aerosolized. However, the droplets can be airborne temporarily. And it's those droplets, the respiratory secretions, when you sneeze, when you cough, when you just schmutz all over because you have this crazy respiratory illness. The majority of infections are resulting from human to human transmission. Not from the environmental contamination. It is, you've got to go hang out with sick people to get it in general, what we're finding with the majority of cases. So the treatment, as you guys are probably aware, supportive care is what we use to treat viral infections of almost any kind. That consists very aggressively with this. So that can be with like if you get a cold, that's a virus. Actually, a lot of times it's a coronavirus too. And your doctor may say, go home, take some aspirin, drink some clear fluids, and take care of yourself and rest for a few days and call me in a few days if you're not better. That's supportive care. I'm going to call that minimal supportive care. The other end of that spectrum is very aggressive supportive care, including hospitalization with IV or intravenous fluid administration, oxygen therapy, all the way through to a ventilator if you have trouble breathing. The reason you may have trouble breathing is because the COVID-19 disease syndrome can become very severe, and when it does, it produces a significant viral pneumonia. So the other things you see there underneath are plus or minus, and some of these people may consider to be controversial. Of course, in the face of an emerging pathogen like this, we don't have any clinical trials that we have proof of. We don't have significant data to tell us what we should or shouldn't give. And so I say plus or minus. That remdesivir is one that people are talking about a lot. It's made by the same company that produced an antiviral for cats for their coronavirus, FIP. The hydroxychloroquine, the anti-malarial drug, it's an old drug. People are talking about that one with azithromycin. The Z-Pak, there seems to be some initial anecdotal clinical data indicating that's effective. And then I have seen in the media that people are looking at ivermectin because it prevented the replication of the virus. But that was in a lab in a petri dish. So that does not have clinically proven efficacy at all. And in fact, the FDA has now released guidelines in the last couple of days that says, hey, maybe don't be shooting yourself up with ivermectin because you have COVID-19, okay? I would never recommend taking ivermectin without your physician recommending or prescribing it for you. And there, oh, I meant to mention this earlier. On the bottom of the slide, I put the reference for you about that patient 0 having been identified as infected prior to that wet market. I think that's important. Okay, so now we're gonna look at reported cases because we have enough of them now. When I last spoke with everyone on a Facebook Live, I think we only had, we had a couple dogs and we had a cat. Now we've got more, but let's start at the beginning. And so there was a 17-year-old Pomeranian, his name was Benny. His owner had COVID-19. And in Hong Kong, apparently, what the authorities are doing is that if you have pets and you have symptomatic COVID-19, they are seeking to quarantine your animals. Now, I'm not sure if that's bad. I wouldn't want Charlene necessarily having to go into quarantine, but I also don't want her to get COVID-19 from me if I get it. So Benny and Benny's housemate, another dog, and I just picked this dog because it was cute. I don't know, it was a mixed breed dog of some kind. Both went into quarantine, okay? They were asymptomatic. They did nasopharyngeal swab, so they stuck the swab up the nose of the dog like they do with people, and they did a PCR test, and they said there's viral DNA that's present right there. So he must have it. That's not true. Because as you guys know, Pomeranian snarfles all the time, and they suck up all kinds of stuff into their nose, especially if their owner's hugging them and their owner has respiratory secretions. Maybe Benny snuffled up some of that in his nose, and that's what they found. So they continued to test Benny. He was repeatedly a week positive. The other dog was never positive, and neither of them were ever symptomatic. And then their owner recovered, and the dogs were released from quarantine. And 2 days after leaving quarantine, the 17-year-old Pomeranian died. We don't know what he died from because the owner declined a necropsy, which is an autopsy on an animal. The owner declined the necropsy. I never would argue with an owner who declines that for their own pet, but in this case, I wish they would have been able to do a necropsy. So, because a 17-year-old dog in quarantine, out of quarantine, getting tested, that's a lot of stress for a dog. And so perhaps that contributed. I don't know, but I don't think that's unreasonable to presume. So then everyone was kind of okay. Okay, some dogs got it. We have no evidence indicating the dogs can give it to anyone. Then we had a cat. So there was a Belgian cat who was positive. So the owner was positive for COVID-19. And oh, Charlene's coming back in here with us. Come on back up. The owner had the disease. Then the cat started with some clinical signs about a week after the owner was diagnosed. And the cat started with vomiting and diarrhea, and then progressed to add in some respiratory signs. And so they initially found the viral DNA in the diarrhea, in the fecal material of the cat. Now that doesn't seem unreasonable to me. The fact that a cat was positive also doesn't seem unreasonable. Because with the original SARS in the early 2000s, cats got that one too. And so the next question became, did the cat transmit it to anything? Did he pass it on? And this cat did not. So we have no evidence that your cat or your dog can give you the disease, okay? All right, then we had another cat. It was raining cats, right? Raining cats and dogs. It was raining cats. So in Hong Kong, they continued with quarantining some pets that belonged to owners who were positive, and they found a cat that was positive. This cat was asymptomatic, no signs at all. And so, but he was positive. Again, the cat didn't transmit to anyone or any other creature that we're aware of. All right. So I do want to add in here a little bit, and I don't have a slide for it, but the other thing that came out around about this time was that someone had done some work with ferrets. And in the land of viruses, a lot of times ferrets and cats hang out together as far as what they'll be susceptible to. And what they determined was that the ferrets could contract the COVID-19 and they could give it to other ferrets that were housed near them. Okay, again, I'm not impressed. Cats and ferrets. Cats and ferrets and the original SARS were definitely friends. So again, I'm not overly concerned. I'm not overly impressed with that situation, okay? But I just want to mention it here. Then we had another dog. So there was a German Shepherd, and I think it was a 2-year-old German Shepherd or a 4-year-old German Shepherd in Hong Kong. Hong Kong is testing a lot of animals because, like I said, their animal authority is quarantining pets that belong to owners who are positive for the disease. This dog didn't have any signs either. Now, personally, kudos to whoever got the nasopharyngeal swab sample from this German Shepherd because I don't want to be the veterinarian that has to do that. It's way back there, and Shepherds are big. So those of you who work with German Shepherds on a regular basis, I know you can understand. You can understand, huh? So, so now we have another dog, right? This is a whole lot of animals. These are a whole lot of companion animals, and that's interesting. Then we had the tiger, right? Now, there were a whole lot of people in this country who weren't really paying attention to the news saying, oh, a Hong Kong dog, oh, a Belgian cat, oh, another Hong Kong dog. I think everyone sat up and took notice when we had Nadia, a Malayan tiger, who was positive, right? Number one, because it's a tiger, and that is incredibly sexy when compared to a domestic short-haired cat. Sorry, small cat lovers, it's true. And so this was very interesting. And also this cat was in the Bronx, which means this cat, someone had to bring it to the cat. It's not like this cat was out and about in town, okay? And it really wasn't just one Malayan tiger. So the key to this was, you had to read the fine details of it, is that they had multiple cats that were showing clinical signs of respiratory disease. There were 2 lions, 2 Amur leopards, and 2 Malayan tigers. So I guess you have to come in a pair if you want to get the COVID-19 and you're a big cat. All the cats are doing well and recovering. However, and they did see a little bit of anorexia. The cats would go a little bit off feed, which if you've ever taken care of a cat, you know, one of the first things they do is like stop eating or only eat a little bit. They're like my littlest nephew, Neil. Neil gets sick. The first thing he does is say, I don't want all of that. And then I know there's something wrong with Neil. So these cats that, you know, they went a little bit off feed, and then they started with respiratory signs. Initially, when I spoke with the chief veterinarian at the Bronx, he indicated that they thought that there was an asymptomatic shedder, so an asymptomatic employee, so a keeper, either the one who prepared the diets or the one who took care of the cats in their cat house and enclosure, was positive at a later date for COVID-19. Now I'm not sure that that is true. I'm not sure that that is true. So there was all that. So now we get to the real issue that I think people are worried about, because there was some information that came out from the British Veterinary Association talking about fur. What about all that fur? And if you're a groomer, you're very concerned with fur on a daily basis. I'm concerned with fur. Look at Charlene. I don't know if you guys can appreciate how thick and heavy this coat is, and that she has an undercoat. It's crazy. So I'm concerned about fur. So let's look at some basic common sense here. Okay, COVID-19 or SARS coronavirus 2, the virus that produces COVID-19 illness, can survive in the air for up to 3 hours. That means if the droplet's hanging in the air, it can survive for up to 3 hours. It can survive on soft surfaces, we know, for up to 24 hours. Okay, well now we're getting to something of interest here. On a hard, impermeable surface, like glass or hard plastic, potentially, it can survive for 48 to 72 hours. Now, that's not just related to the surface. The rest of the environment also has to be appropriate for it to survive. And it doesn't mean that 100% of the virons or the viral molecules all survive and are able to be effective at the end of the 48 or 72 hours. That's not what it means. It means some virus can survive up to 72 hours under the right conditions on a hard, impermeable surface. Okay, you hear a lot of ifs in there, right? So now, knowing all of this, I want you to think about fur. What does fur look like? What does it feel like? I'm going to classify fur as soft. Soft. So I'm going to say at the best, it's going to survive up to 24 hours. Okay, now that's still a long time. So what am I going to do about that? Because people are concerned. Whether you are an IBPSA member, whether you're a non-member who works at a kennel or a doggy daycare or something like this, or you are a dog walker, you do in-home pet sitting, that sort of thing, you should be concerned about the transmission of this virus, whether it's from the owner, but I don't think you need to be concerned about it coming from the dog. And so let me finish with fur, and then I'll get to some new information that got kicked out just late last night, actually. So with the fur, let's presume the worst. Let's presume it can survive up to 24 hours. So the mucus that contains, or the schmutz, the viral secretion, the respiratory secretions that contains the virus is not going to leap from the fur into your mouth, up your nose, or into your eyes, right? You have to either go touch it and put it there by touching your face or eating your lunch, or you have to pick up the dog and put your face in the fur. All right, so let's add some common sense to the discussion here and say, if you see some schmutz, some slimy gook in the fur of a dog or a cat that you're handling at your facility, is that the one you're going to stick your face in? I'm going to hope no is the answer. I'm going to hope heck to the no is the answer. Okay, so how dangerous is the fur now for transmitting that virus to you in your daily work? Well, Chatfield's position is not really, based on what we know. So if I know that the fur is grossly unlikely to present that risk for me. Oh, one more thing. The virus is actually inactivated in UV light, direct sunlight. It's not like instantaneous, but over a short period of time, the virus will become inactivated. So you could walk the dog outside. There are people making other recommendations, but in my opinion, based on the evidence that we have, I don't think that that virus is a threat to you on the fur of dogs and cats. Okay, but now we've said that, we've said common sense things like don't lick the dogs and cats that come to you, right? So now you're going to say, but what if I'm a little bit wrong? Okay, a little bit wrong, not totally wrong. What if I'm just a little bit wrong? It has happened, and I will admit it has happened. Not in this decade. No, I'm just kidding. But if we want to be sure, because I don't want anyone to be taking unnecessary risks. So what can you do? What can you do if you're concerned? You can, hey, keep pets away from your face, right? Now, I know that's difficult, especially if you're a groomer and you have the dog up on the table and you're grooming. You can, when dogs come into your facility, you can rinse them off. You can give them a bath. You can insist on the bath, right? You can insist that folks, clients and customers, that you're going to charge them and you're going to bathe that dog immediately. So it doesn't present a risk to you, your staff, and it doesn't present a risk to other dogs. You can wipe them down with a soapy wet rag, and then wipe that, use a soap that's appropriate for use on pets. Use a soap that says it is effective at killing enveloped viruses, as SARS-CoV-2 is an enveloped virus. And then make sure that the animal is going to be okay with it and not have a really distressful moment. I say the wiping the pets off option for those cats that may not want to do it. But remember, use something that's safe for them, because cats are going to lick it, dogs are going to lick it. And then look at that next one. Oh my goodness, you could put you on some gloves. You could put on gloves, people. Number one, gloves protect your hands, but most of us will not stick our finger in our eye, up our nose, or on our mouth if we have on gloves. It's just another fail safe for you. Again, don't touch your face, mouth, or nose. Another thing you can consider if you're bathing a lot of dogs, if you're grooming a really hairy dog, I know that fur gets everywhere. There's just no way around it. You can wear protection. So it could be a mask. I don't think it needs to be an N95. It can be a cloth mask, a surgical mask. You want to keep that fur out of your face. You can wear a face shield. One of those things, it looks like a clear welder's helmet, with a lot of times it's like a hard plastic thing that'll Velcro in the back. You can wear goggles to keep it out of your eyes. But those are some really easy common sense things that you can do if you're concerned. Again, I think it is incredibly unlikely that this virus is going to be surviving in that animal's fur and that you're going to be exposed to it in that fashion. I mean, incredibly unlikely. But if you're concerned, there's nothing wrong with taking action to protect yourself and protect your staff. Okay. Oh, I forgot. So before we get to questions, I hope you guys are typing some into the comments section. And those are going to then be relayed to me. But there was an article that got kicked out late last night. I think it's in molecular, molecular and viral biology, maybe, something like that. And it was a researcher in Canada who looked at the genetic makeup of the disease, and they looked at that, they compared it to others, and without getting too far in the weeds, what they determined was that this coronavirus seems to have adapted to creatures who their immune system doesn't see this particular chunk of code, of genetic code. And then they went out and they said, now that we have the answer, let's go find the question, right? So then they went and looked and said, must be dogs, because dog intestinal tracts look like that. Okay, so this is a little bit, this is part of the problem with trying to rush to get out peer-reviewed publications about an emerging pathogen like this, is that I am not yet convinced by the data offered that even their conclusions are supported. There was a little bit of clickbait with some of the titles on the internet when they wrote articles about this article that said dogs can now transmit coronavirus. That is not true. I have yet to see evidence of that. This study didn't claim that. What they were trying to say were that dogs were the intermediate host, and it jumped from dogs to people. Okay, again, let's insert some common sense. If dogs were transmitting this virus to people, we'd have a lot more dogs that had the virus, and they're testing all those dogs in Hong Kong, and we've come up with 3 that were positive, none of whom were symptomatic. And there's another company, IDEX, who said they've tested thousands of dogs and cats, and they've had no positives. So it's just hard for me to swallow whether or not this is really true. I don't think that dogs should be implicated in this fashion. You can see Charlie's running around my studio a little bit. Okay, so I'm gonna get on my my old lady glasses here so I can see what your questions are, because you guys have some. So let's see. So they are a fomite, which means there is a chance the pet gets it. Yeah, so someone's asking me about fomite. So a fomite is an inanimate object that can unwittingly transmit a virus to another host, whether that's dog to dog or person to person. This is why you disinfect your materials, your equipment in between pets, so that you don't transfer disease from one to other, because the equipment can serve as a fomite and transfer that disease. No, there is zero evidence at this point in time that dog fur or cat fur can serve as a fomite and transmit the disease to humans. Great. So as I wipe my mouth, okay. So let's see what we have here. Yes, I agree, Lola. I really wish there would have been a necropsy on Benny, the Pomeranian, but I also sympathize with that owner for what they had just gone through with being infected with an emerging disease very early on in the phase of it, having to be separated from both of their pets, not knowing what was going on with their pets at that time. So I sympathize with them in wanting to decline that. But I agree, I wish I would have seen it. Let's see here. So, Lola also says that you've seen a tiger and a few apes testing positive. Okay, I have not seen any information indicating that any of the great apes like gorillas, orangutans, chimpanzees have tested positive. However, there's been a whole lot of articles that have indicated that any emerging pathogen such as this presents a threat to free-ranging gorillas. And the article I saw actually was concerned about mountain gorillas, those rarest of the gorillas, because people go to see them because they're incredible. And so they've had issues with influenza and with the cold, which is another coronavirus, being transmitted from humans to them. But I've seen no reports of positive tests for SARS coronavirus 2 in any apes. So let's see. I'm going to mispronounce this, but Tiara, I hope that's how I say your name. That sounds beautiful. It says, we should be doing the same thing as Hong Kong with any animals belonging to COVID-19 positive patients. So I love America. And one of the things in America is that our government can't do that to us without a very specific set of circumstances. So what we are doing, however, is that veterinarians are working with public health officials, as we always tend to do in the face of these things. And people are being told by public health officials if they test positive for the coronavirus, they're being cautioned about contact with their pets, just as they're being cautioned about contact with other humans. And it's being recommended that they contact their veterinarian about potentially testing their animal. And then the veterinarians will proceed with that because we're not testing every animal. That's not necessary. Okay, so let's see. How can groomers do business during the shutdown? Curbside service. Yes! Curbside service, the magic of curbside service. I think there's a lot of folks, veterinarians and others, who may continue to embrace the curbside service after this thing is resolved, because it will be resolved. We will go back to a time where we're not isolated, where we're not worried about this disease at this level. We will. But man, that curbside service seems okay. I think curbside service is okay. So if it is legal for you to be open, if you're not bucking any sort of gubernatorial directive or executive order, yeah, open, man, open. Let's take care of the pets. Curbside service is a great idea. You limit your contact with humans, so you're still embracing that social distancing as recommended by the CDC. Nothing wrong with curbside service, folks. So now, what detergents? I love that question too. So those of you who've seen me lecture before, you know my happy smell is bleach. I love it. Bleach is very effective against this virus. The EPA kicked out a list of effective detergents, disinfectants against this pathogen early on. That was several weeks ago they put that out. Anything that is labeled as effective against enveloped viruses should be very effective against this. But you're going to want to read the label and adhere to the recommended contact time. It's not an instantaneous kill, folks. So if it's 2 minutes, 6 minutes, 10 minutes, you need to follow that. That's the most common error that's made with disinfectant detergent. Any soap, I think any soap containing shampoo will remove any of that from the fur. So any soap containing shampoo, right? Okay, so next one, Karen K says, what is the recommended protocol for picking up or caring for pets when the owner's too sick? Yes, this is another one. Karen, you must be a very compassionate person to worry about that. So if a person becomes too ill, or if a person is confirmed infected and they don't want to take the risk with their pet, then they can have someone who is not positive for the disease take care of their pet. I think that's a great idea. But you have to get the pet transferred, decontaminated, and safe for other people. What you can do, number one, change the leash. Don't take the leash that the pet has. Get a different one, slip it over, just use it temporarily. Throw that leash, if you can do it, throw that leash in the wash, hot, with bleach and soap, right? And run it through the dryer. We know that COVID-19 does not survive really high temperatures. So the other thing is, I'm gonna bathe that pet. I'm gonna bathe that pet. And as I indicated in that earlier information, you can wipe them down if it's a cat. And you can also bathe them if they're a dog. The other thing is you can depend on time. So you could isolate that pet for, I would say, 48 hours with no contact. Then I strongly suspect it's grossly unlikely any of the virus would have survived. But really wiping them down should be okay. Okay, so let's see. If the shutdown is ended and there's lots of people wanting to travel, what should boarding kennels do to be prepared? Excellent. Yes, proactive. I love that. But I should expect that from IVPSA members, right? So to be proactive, I think what you need to do is put in place a protocol, not only for the animals you're going to receive, because you can't really ask people their medical history, right? But you can have them bathed when they arrive. You can keep pets separate from each other. No play groups. I think play groups are a bad idea almost any time, but definitely right now, play groups that are mixed from different households, let's not do that. You're going to want to disinfect bowls. You're going to disinfect runs in between and use something that's effective against envelope viruses. If you have to pick up a pet, just don't put them up at your face. So don't bend over like this and then scoop them up. You know how we want to scoop under the chest and under the belly, right in front of the rear, or just under the haunches. Don't pick them up to your face. Okay, put some cloth over your face if you need to do that, and then keep your face out. And then you go wash your arms, you wash everything off, and you can change your top. Okay. All right, so let's see here. What about dog walkers? Same thing. You can still keep your business going. What is wrong with keeping your business going? Dogs still need to be walked. People still need their pets taken care of. I don't think we should be neglecting them. So if you're going to walk dogs, I think you need to be careful of leashes. I would wear gloves. And then I would be very careful. I wouldn't walk mixed group of dogs. I would walk dogs from single household. I wouldn't walk mixed groups of dogs together necessarily, only temporarily, unless the owners know that's going on and they're okay with it. Okay. Okay. Oh, my dog had a corona vaccine. Is that going to protect against COVID? No. That was easy. That was an easy one, right? That's an easy question. So the answer is no, obviously, or not so obviously. So there is a coronavirus vaccine for dogs. It is not the same coronavirus. It will not be effective. And frankly, we don't vaccinate too often for coronavirus in this country in dogs anymore. We used to, probably like 25, 30 years ago we did. We don't anymore. It's just not that big of a deal. And as you can see with the dogs that have tested positive that we know of so far, they were asymptomatic or very mild. All right, so how come cleaning leashes? Yeah, if you cannot throw it in the wash and bleach it, I would consider how attached are you to that leash? Yeah, to me, it's not worth a risk. Now again, fomites are playing a very, very small role, if any, in the transmission of this disease among people. It's human to human transmission, but I wouldn't want to take the chance. So let's throw it in the wash or throw it out. Someone I heard was using chlorhexidine to wipe down dogs. Is that safe? So chlorhexidine is a very common, very popular disinfectant or scrub solution that we use in veterinary medicine. And I think a lot of boarding kennels have it too. Maybe groomers have it as well for some of those dogs that have skin issues. So is that safe? Well, if it's labeled as safe to use on dogs, sure. Do I think you need to pour the whole bottle on the dog? Again, this is like the 5th time I think I said in this lecture alone, inject some common sense, folks. So if it's labeled as safe to use on a pet, you can use it on a pet if you use it based on the directions. Does chlorhexidine, is it effective at inactivating envelope viruses such as corona? Yeah, okay. That's an easy one. And I'm gonna have to say, thanks to Karen for that. Karen, you had a litany of questions. I love it, Karen Kaner. Dr. Courtney Campbell has joined us. I don't know how many of you guys know him, but he also is one of Charlene's friends. And so he wants to know how Charlene is dealing with social distancing. I might ask Dr. Courtney Campbell how he is dealing with being socially distanced from Charlene. Because you guys saw Charlene, she seems fine, right? Yeah, so she's doing well because she lives on the farm with me. I live on the family farm, and I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but the farm is the original social distancing. That's right. So yeah, so she's doing excellent. Thank you so much for asking. But Java, who you guys may know is Carmen, IBPSA's president, Carmen, her dog, Java is not happy with social distancing. I guess Java is used to a like more intensive social life than Charlene, maybe. So let's see. So Tiara asked again, I get the bathing, but wiping down with what? Yeah, okay, I get you. So if it's not appropriate to bathe it, if it's a cat, if it's a dog that can't handle a lot of stress, a dog that just, you know, one of these anxious dogs, you can wipe them down with a wet, soapy washcloth. And what you're trying to do is get any gross, and I mean gross, not just, it is disgusting, so disgusting, but also gross, seen with the naked eye, gross dirt or contamination off the dog's fur or the cat's fur. That's our goal. And so you can wipe them down. Chlorhexidine makes wipes. Now make sure again that those are safe, labeled as safe to use on a pet. You can just use soap, so you can kind of sponge bath them a little bit, not so much water, but sponge bath them. That's what I mean by wiping them down. So Rebecca Maurice, what about wiping down dogs with aloe and alcohol mixture? Ooh, okay. So, and this is going to be my last question, and it's a doozy. It is a great question. So a lot of folks have asked me about alcohol as a disinfectant. And alcohol, I think, is isopropyl alcohol, the kind you buy, you know, at Walmart or anywhere you get your typical pharmaceutical products that are over the counter. I don't know if you guys have ever used a large amount of alcohol to disinfect anything, but that's a lot of smell. And that is not ideal. If you have a super sniffer, like a lot of dogs, like Charlene would be repulsed by using alcohol. She doesn't like it on her, just because she doesn't like the smell. She's a super sniffer. So I would not recommend using aloe and alcohol to wipe down pets for this. I think there's other choices. So I just wouldn't recommend that. So let's see. Oh, we got one more. I'm going to take one more apparently. So, Suze Barat, is there any information about whether rescue is effective? Oh, that is excellent. And this is definitely the last one. Thank you so much for bringing that up though, Suze. So rescue is a potentiated hydrogen peroxide. That's the name brand of it, but the chemical in it is hydrogen peroxide. Hydrogen peroxide is effective against envelope viruses. So yes, I would have to say, I believe number one, rescue is labeled for use against envelope viruses. And so my presumption would be that it's effective against this one. And again, I would encourage you, if you have a question about your favorite disinfectant and how effective it may or may not be, the EPA has that list out. It's at epa.gov. I think there's links to the list on the CDC website as well. And actually on Vet Candy, on myvetcandy.com, we have a COVID page. So it's myvetcandy, all one word, .com/COVID, and that's our landing page. And we've got lots of resources there, articles. We link to the science that supports what we're saying. We link to the EPA list of disinfectants that are approved for use against the COVID. So you can find it there. We've got some podcasts and some other things also that you can check out and encourage folks if they're confused by a lot of the misinformation that's out there. So to close it up tonight, I want to say thank you so much, Carmen, because Carmen drove this. She reached out to me because she's incredibly proactive as a president. If you're listening and you're not an IBPSA member, I think you ought to consider joining. These sorts of industry associations are incredible during these sorts of events at getting you the right information at the right time, and also just for reaching out and networking with your fellow professionals. Also, thanks to Vet Candy, always for putting this together. It's a lot of tech work, a lot of stuff behind the scenes, and that goes into putting one of these together, and I really appreciate it. And I also appreciate all of you for tuning in tonight. You have a lot of things happening. I know we're all cooking dinner now, and a lot of us are going to have to sort out how to do our own hair and nails. Oh my gosh, if the nail salon could open. So I really appreciate you taking time to invest in educating yourself about how to best take care of the pets that we all love. So hopefully I'll see you at myvetcandy.com. If not, you can find me in the Candyverse on my podcast, Vet Candy and Other News on Pet Life Radio. And you can find me sitting in between Dr. Courtney Campbell and Dr. Jason Chatfield on Vet Candy Pop. You can find us on YouTube. So until next time, thanks for joining us, and have a good night.